What's up, fam? We are back on the CEO Pulse podcast where you get the real, the raw, and the mind of entrepreneurship. Man, do we have some gold for you guys today. We are sitting down with Mike Hambright. I mean, his experience in real estate alone, it's a feat, right? It's easier said than done, but he's not only crushed it in the real estate space as an investor, he holds a portfolio right now over 100 mil. He's got, $40 million deals in the pipeline. He's the founder of flipnerd.com, which launched around 2013, helping investors just kind of get a grip on the whole investing process. And he's coached hundreds of real estate investors, throughout the last 10 years. He runs the Investor Fuel Mastermind as well, and is the owner of Investor Machine, a lead generation a software. So, I mean, the extent of the stuff that you do, man, it's insane. It's insane. I'm very, very honored to have you on the show. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Hey, excited to be here. It's kind of funny. It's like, that's how progress works in your business, right? Is like, and by the way, I've had plenty of failures too. So don't, we don't have enough time to talk about all those today, but that's how I think for all of us as real estate investors, entrepreneurs, it starts with one thing and then something else happens and you do this next step and you do the next step. And that's just how growth works. It takes, I mean, this is all over 14 years, right? So
yeah,
definitely didn't happen overnight. And again, plenty of failures to mix in there as well.
Man, I mean, and that's incredible. And I like I like the fact that you're opening up with that right away, right? One of our things is the entrepreneur mindset. People see the highlights. People see, or the public out there, they'll see, okay, cool, they're crushing it this way. He must have gotten, it handed to him, or people start assuming things, right? But the reality of the whole thing is that there's a lot of ups and downs that go through on the back end of things, and really emotional intelligence plays very well into it, and how you handle adversity, and then how you look at opportunity as you're coming across. So it's I mean, the more I look into your background, the more impressed I am. But give us, a little bit of perspective in your own words. How did you get started as a real estate investor, and then just grew into the magnitude, that you currently,
and it's funny too. I mean, I feel like I'm just getting started in a lot of areas too, right? And so I think, it started as literally doing one deal, like, flipping my first house, right? And that was in 2008. Before that, I've told my story a number of times. I'll tell you kind of the high level version is kind of refer to myself as a corporate refugee. So got a bunch of formal education because I thought that's what I was supposed to do to get a good job. And then I've got a job that actually was a great job. I loved it. But I ended up getting fired, and I got fired because my boss got fired and I was kind of his guy. So the whole team just kind of went away ultimately. Right. And so stuff like that, it was a big eye opener to me, somebody that's always worked really hard to kind of get ahead and used to work really hard for other people, that I don't have control over where I'm going here. And then I went to another job, and it was a startup that was flying high, and then it filed for bankruptcy. And it was kind of like this realization of like, man, what's going to happen the next time? Like,
kind of like a broken dream, right?
Yeah. So, it's just kind of this realization of, and at that time, the second time around, my wife had left her job, and she was a consultant actually making pretty good money, more money than I was making. And to have our son, and our son was 2 months old. So all this stuff's unwinding, and I'm like, I kind of say shit got real fast, because we went from like dual income, like flying high, didn't have a care in the world because we didn't really have any responsibilities at that point, to like no income, baby. Have our house that we rented out because I moved for the second job. We're renting a house with somebody else across the country where we didn't even want to be there. And it was just, this real, this time to really reflect and say like, what am I going to do next? Like, and for me, I'd always been fairly entrepreneurial, though I'd never really done anything serious with that. I just felt like I had to take my future into my own hands. And, that started by trying to get into real estate, and had no idea what I was doing, going to RIA clubs and weekend boot camps and stuff to try to figure it out. But, and then, doing a couple deals eventually, and then kind of growing from there, after our first year in business, we ended up flipping like 65 or 70 houses.
Wait, after the first year in business?
First year. Yeah. And it just went, some of it was just like, it was just this wake up call of like, let's do our own thing. And then it felt real small. And it's like, wait a minute, if we're going to take this kind of risk. Like I could go get another job, which is not what I wanted to do,
Yeah.
but we were making decent money at that point in corporate America. And I was like, I can't dabble. Like we got to go big. And fortunately, really the background that we had in corporate America gave us the awareness that we needed to create a team. We needed to kind of scale up fast to run a real business. Otherwise we're going to work ourselves to the bone. And, you know, we still work really hard, but
It's like the old saying, right? Go big or go home. It's I don't know. I've had the experience of being on survival mode, putting myself, because of decisions that rash decisions that I've made in the past. I put myself in survival mode, and once you're there, like when you're in that space, just things click, right? It's like the do or die kind of mentality kicks in, and then you just got to get shit done. But man, so you jumped first year, you were doing 65 deals on year 2. It's crazy. I mean, that's a leap. It's not even
to be fair, so I'll say a couple things. One is we did it the hardest way possible. We primarily rehabbed those. And also, to be fair, 2008 2009 was a different time, right? It was there's a lot less competition at the time because it was basically during a downturn. That's when we got started, and just coincidentally, like we didn't plan that, but it was a great time to get started. And for folks that are worried about a downturn in the market right now, like honestly, for most real estate investors, the best thing that can happen to you is a downturn in the market, because a lot of competition goes away, and things are just kind of easier.
So if you were jumping in 2008, 2009, you kind of got in right as the curve was starting to pick back up, right? Little by little, not necessarily at the
depends on the market you're in, right? Like where you guys were in Phoenix, it probably dragged along for a few more years. Dallas, where I'm at, was never really hit all that bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say when you look, and that's another thing, when you look at a lot of the numbers now that are used kind of nationally, it's like that doesn't reflect any one market. So in Dallas, the Dallas market that I'm in, for example, the market slowed down a lot, but it was still common for us to rehab a house and have it under contract within 7 days and get multiple offers, even in a down market. But we just created a better mousetrap. Like you learn as markets go up and down how to play that game. It's like, okay, here's what I do in that market. Here's what I do in that market. And when you start to get around people that have been riding the storm for a long time, they have different exit strategies in different markets. They use different tools and different strategies in different markets. And that's what investors in the stock market do too. They might move into different asset classes or whatever based on where markets are. And it's just kind of treating your real estate business like that instead of only having kind of one tool of this is all I know how to do, right?
Yeah, there's so many ways to skin the cat, when it comes to real estate and real estate investments, right? If you only have a hammer in your toolbox, everything looks like a nail, right?
That's right.
But if you just kind of step back and then work on your craft, work on yourself, on your structuring skills for deals and that sort of thing, you're going to see a lot more opportunity. Man, so you crushed it. You went all in. And you said, either go big or go home. And then this happened. I did very well year 1. How did you, so a couple of years go by, what are you talking, 3-4 years? And then you launched Flip Nerd? Is that?
We were probably investing for about 5 or 6 years before I launched Flip Nerd. And even that was, so that was, for those that are listening that don't know, I started flipnerd.com in, I think December, it was right around Christmas time of 2013. And it was just a podcast really for years. And at the time I started my podcast, so long ago, there were like 6 other podcasts. There was like Sean Terry, Joe McCall, Jason Hartman, a few others out there. And now there's a lot of them, which is amazing. But, and it's not like I planned that either. Like it just kind of happened. Right. But it was an evolution too. So what happened is I was flipping houses for, the first few years. Then things start to get, as you start to scale your business, you talked about a bunch of things up front. Well, it's a little bit of evolution of your business stuff, just kind of getting bolted on. So the first thing, for example, was, well, we should keep some houses as rentals, right? So next thing you know, we're in the rental business. And then I started to get a little, honestly, I got a little lonely and had the opportunity to start doing some coaching. So I started coaching people. And then next thing you know, I have a coaching business. Right. And they all kind of fed each other. Like most of it was here locally initially. And we did deals together, like lots of JV stuff. And then when I started to try to branch out outside of my market is when I started to do the podcast. It's like, how do I expand my network in a bigger way? And that's really when the podcast, started. And I could even go back to those early times of like one of my very first podcasts was actually Matt Andrews, who you know well as well. We're great friends, like Trevor Mock, like a bunch of these guys that people like look up to, and I have a lot of respect for, were some of my early podcast guests. And,
Wow.
it just evolved from there to them being in my mastermind and us finding ways to work together now and do lots of stuff together. And so, without knowing where that would take me, it took me down, a path that's pretty cool in hindsight.
Well, motion breeds opportunity, right? I mean, when
Yeah.
you're in it, and then you have your they call what's it called, the ROS, reticular activating system. Like, you're just paying attention for, okay, what could be an opportunity. What if the question?
Yeah.
What if? And then if you have that natural itch of just making shit happen, it can be a really, really good combination, especially when you put yourself in a space like that.
Right.
I can't tell you, man, how many doors just having conversations with people, like in a podcast setting, how many doors have been opened because of that simple,
Yep.
thing that happens, right? But I think at the end of the day, it takes guts, one, to make the leap, to take that jump and say, cool, I'm going to leave something that's quote unquote safe, right, as in the corporate world, and then jump in, bet on yourself. But once you, I think as entrepreneurs, once we get a taste of it, and then just kind of start crafting that vision, although it may sound cliche, but at least smell the opportunity, things change, man. I know my brain broke the second where I felt like, oh wow, this thing that I have in my head can be real.
Yeah, it's fear.
Was that the same
Everybody's
for you?
different. Depends on how you were raised, right? But
Yeah.
like I was the first entrepreneur in my family. I was actually the first person in my family to even go to college, and so I couldn't like reflect back on
Yeah.
what had happened before. Now I have a son that's 14, and I'd be shocked if he is not an entrepreneur, just because he's his whole life he's seen us
Oh, yeah.
from the age of like less than one. We started in our business, and he, and my wife is involved in everything I do. I mean, she's my partner in everything. And so he sees that, and it's just, but what it gives you is the confidence. Like I'll say my confidence now, and I've said this before, if somebody took everything away from me, I'd build it back, 10 times faster and 10 times better, just because I have the confidence to do that. And I think once you can, and I don't say that in a cocky way, like I didn't used to have that. Like I was scared. Right.
Yeah.
And once you get to a point to where you're like, they seem risky to the outside world, but for me, it's a calculated risk. Like I know what I'm doing. Just like in real estate, I feel like investing in the stock market is way more risky than investing in real estate, because I can touch and feel it, and I know what I'm doing. Right.
Right.
And so once I realized that risk for me is going to work for somebody else, where I have no control, and controlling my own fate is almost, there's risk involved, but I'm very comfortable with that risk. Right. Because I believe in me, and I can't believe in other, like the company that I worked at, the first job that I said I lost, it was a $5 billion company with 37,000 employees. And 5 years ago, it disappeared. Like they fired everybody in the company, went bankrupt, and they shut down. It's like, and it was 100, I don't know, 80 or 100-year-old company. So it's like things that feel safe, like, are they safe? And this world is upside down anyway, from all the shit we've been dealing with the past, several years. And so what is safe, anymore? Who knows?
Exactly. No, I completely agree, man. I completely agree. I think there's a lot of I think we're in a awakening stage, and I don't mean that in a spiritual sense. I mean that in a in the sense of opportunity. There's a lot of opportunity out there. I think one of the hardest things, just in general, is to know how to look at it, right? Know how to look at it. One of the biggest things, for example, that I've taken back from our mastermind, the family mastermind, is who, not how. I mean, I am absolutely the how guy. I'm going to figure this out. How can I do this? How can I get better at it? How can I, do more? And how, but just pivoting and thinking, who knows more about this than me? Who can, help me see a different perspective on this? Who can I partner up with and just, level up and squat up and do, bigger and better? Has just shifted my business in so many different ways. And it's helped me see opportunity in a whole different context.
Yeah. And for most of us too, we don't have the capacity to, even if we know how to do it, we don't have
Yeah.
the capacity to do it all. If you want to build a business that scales up to where it's beyond kind of job mode, you can't
Yeah.
do it all. There's not enough time in the day to do it. Even if you're, I kind of make this joke about like, if I was cause I'm like you, like I'm a perfectionist. Like I struggle with outsourcing stuff, even
Yeah.
though I actually have, we have between
Battle.
my business partner and I, we have about 80 virtual assistants. So it's funny that I say that, but important things I have a hard time giving up because it's just like, I'm confident that I can get it done myself. And so I kind of say, like, if I owned a McDonald's, like nobody would make those fries as golden brown as me,
Yeah.
but I have to be the CEO. I can't be the French fry guy,
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a battle, man. There's always an internal battle. It's kind of like, to me, it's the analogy of a baby, right? We're like, you created through your real estate investment business, you created this baby, and then you start feeding the baby, and then next thing you know, it's growing, and it's like, crawling around and doing its thing, and then you just growing a little more, and then you add flip nerd to it. So now you have a couple of things, aside of that. I mean, you're talking investor fuel, which is successful mastermind, and then the software, all that stuff. So you're putting this whole thing together, and it's hard to delegate. I think a lot of times, I mean, this is how I feel about my businesses, right? Sometimes it can be hard to delegate and kind of let go of that need for control. But I mean, that same need for control was the thing that kept me in playing the same area for a long time. And I didn't realize it. I mean, I've talked about this before. I got burned out when I was in my mid 20s, 26, 27-year-old. Like I was, there was no drive. I didn't want to, achieve anything else. I got burned out. I got worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
it happens. I think as entrepreneurs, we're all on that edge all the time, right? Of like between burnout and, I mean, you've probably felt this way, like certainly as a real estate investor, there are days where you come in and you're like, I'm going to 10X this thing, and you're all pumped up. And by lunchtime, you're like, I'm shutting this damn thing down. I'm done. Right. And so it's an emotional roller coaster as an entrepreneur. And that's one of the benefits of having a mastermind or being around a lot of other people is you're weird, but we're all weird. And if we get around each other and we talk about it, like it kind of helps calm those fears a little bit of just being able to take a step back and just say, okay, let me just shut down work for the day, or let me go for a walk, or whatever it is. Cause sometimes the roller coaster won't be as big of ups and downs if we put our heads together with other people. And if we spend a little time, kind of recalibrating.
Yeah. I had the biggest issue getting out of my own way. Is that something that happened to you as you were,
that's always been an issue
moving on from,
I mean,
I still struggle with it. Yeah.
Like I'm at a point now where the biggest things I've done, like Investor Fuel is amazing, and I have a really good team, but we're pretty lean for the operation we run. Investor Machine, our data and lead gen company, we have about 80 employees now. And then all the multifamily stuff, which is going to change my family tree. I have a partner, Corey Peterson out of Phoenix as well, the big kahuna. We're business partners. And so the biggest things that I've done have all been with a partner or a JV of some sort. And it's finding people that have kind of a yin to my yang, right? Like there's things that I'm good at, but I'm not like, and finding the piece that I can play in their life too, right? There's like, I have what you need and you have what I need. Together, 1 and 1 is 11, not 2, right?
Right.
And so trying to find those types of relationships. And I'm at a point now where almost everything I do, back to Who Not How, which is an amazing book, by the way, I'm always looking at who can I find, like who could I work with on this, or who would make sense to partner, because together we're way better than we are individually.
Yeah, I agree with that, man. There's so much. If you want to go fast, go alone, right? If you want to go far, you squat up with somebody else. To me, it was a big internal battle, shifting from that. I got this. I got to do it all. It's got to be me. If it's got to be done right, I got to do it yourself. Type of mentality. To that space where I felt actually comfortable empowering and delegating. It was a total game changer. for my business, for my personal life, in terms of exhaustion, in terms of profitability. I mean, it's crazy. Exhaustion went down, profitability went up. There was a lot more smiles around me. And it was just like everything, got better, as soon as that kicked in. But it took me a while to cope with that and then be okay with it at an internal level. How did you deal with that? Or are you a natural delegator?
No, I'm not. It's not natural. It's unnatural to me. And, some of it is, I think, if you go back, and you and I have gotten to know each other better over the years, but I don't know the exact beginning point of your story. But for me, as real estate investors, everything that you learn for the most part is to be cheap, be frugal. We're trying to buy houses at a deep discount. I want investor friendly contractors. I want like the cheapest like floor tile I can find. Like we're always looking for kind of cheap. Yep. And therefore our mentality is to be cheap and frugal and just roll up my sleeves and do it myself. Yeah. Right. And so then when you start to scale,
that was my first flip.
It's an internal struggle, right? Because you're like, I normally do this by myself, like, or, a lot leaner. Why would I start to layer in more cost or whatever? But you have to grow your business. You just have to. And I think some of the struggle internally is you have to marry together scaling, adding costs with growing your business, right? So you have to look at those, what I might have looked at early on as an expense. I have to hire an admin. I'm going to start paying a sales commission to somebody as an expense taking away from my current business. But the way to look at it is like, how can I double my business so that when I add those things, I'm more profitable and I pay all my expenses, and I've impacted other people's lives positively and my life is better. Not only did I grow my business profit wise, but I took stuff off my plate, and those things have to go together hand in hand. So I think a lot of folks look at it as, hey, I make $40,000 a month on average in my business. I do 2 deals and make 20 grand each or whatever. And if I have to add in $10,000 of expense, then I'm making less. And it's like, find a way to grow your business, because that's the only way it makes sense.
Yeah, I guess what happens is you start getting a little bit less of the pie, but the pie gets bigger. Percentage wise, like, so you get 10% of a bigger pie per se.
That's right. Your gross margin percentage will go down, but your gross profit, if you play your cards right, will go up. That's how you have to do it.
Yeah. To me, this is really what kind of did it for me. And I got pissed off of myself. But I started, and I don't know where I picked it up. I picked it up somewhere. Somebody told me, like, how much is an hour of your time worth? Like, I'm not sure. It was like, well, do the math. So I went back to it and started, doing the math and whatnot, and ended up, just based on revenue and whatnot, an hour of my time was worth about $1,200. I was like, okay, cool. That's a pretty healthy hour. Like, what the hell am I doing putting together spreadsheets for an hour? And that, to me, it wasn't coming
driving across town to get a lockbox from a property sold.
Exactly. Or looking
just tell the realtor the code so they can throw it in the trash. Like, it's not literally worth your time to send the email.
Exactly. Or taking pictures. I don't know, you name it, right? There's so many things that can be delegatable, but I wanted to do them all. And when that landed, I was like, man, what am I doing? This is crazy. Yeah. So I don't know, that was like one of the triggers that helped me just realize, right, that I needed to step back from the taskiness of things, and then be better at the stuff I was good at, as opposed to the stuff that can be delegatable. I mean, to me, it was a big game changer in terms of my entrepreneur role and growth altogether.
It's evolution. That's just how it happens.
Yeah, evolution. Love it.
You have to bump up against friction. You have to have friction. You have to bump up against adversity, personal issues, whatever it might be. That those things are what help you grow, right? They're the things that I kind of say, I talk about failure a lot, and that a lot of people that aren't entrepreneurs don't get started because they're afraid to fail. But once for me, like, when I start something new, I know it's going to be littered with failure for a while, but those are lessons, right? Those aren't failures because I don't quit. Like, if you don't quit, it's not a failure. It's a stepping stone towards whatever it is you're trying to achieve.
You know what, man? Some of the people that I respect the most, you included, have mentioned that they talked about the value of failure, so failing and failing forward, right? And really taking those lessons as tools of the trade. You take them, you use them, and then you apply them, you get better and you improve, and you grow from those, as opposed to sitting there and they just kind of moping over it.
Yeah, there's analogies, right? Well, like when you learn to ride a bike, like you fell a few times, right? And
Yeah.
you could say those are failures. If you got up and said, I'm never going to try this again in my whole life,
Yeah.
you'd be a middle-aged man and can't ride a bike, I mean, but you fall and you scrape your legs up and you learn from it, and you learn the next time you fall, I'm going to put my hand down. I'm going to try to do it on the grass instead of the cement. Like those are
Yeah.
all like samples, right? You just learn like, okay, don't do it that way. Don't do it that way. Don't do it that way. And then eventually you learn how to do it. And now, even if you're somebody that hasn't ridden a bike in 10 years, but you grew up riding a bike, you could get on a bike right now and ride it like you haven't had, like it hasn't been a 10-year gap, but
Yeah.
because you have that muscle memory and you remember how to do it, and you have the confidence
The
to get in
lessons
the
are
course
there,
and
right?
do it
Yeah.
again. Right. Right.
What excites you the most about just everything that you're doing? I mean, as far as, and I'm talking overall, right? Holistic,
Yeah.
approach to this question. Entrepreneur wise, the impact that you're having, because I mean, and I want to talk about investor fuel and then investor machine as well, which are, two great things that you have going on. But what excites you the most about everything that you're doing?
I'd say there's two things now, because when I first started, like I told you,
Yeah.
we had good paying jobs, so we had some savings, but we were burning through our savings. So then it was, I have some friends, and through the years of doing my podcast, I've heard plenty of people's stories of like they were living in their car and then they hit rock bottom, and then they went forward. Right. I was never living in my car. We were not, close to that, but we were in survival mode. Like the time clock was ticking, right? But now it's not necessarily about the money. Money's just a scorecard. But for me, there's really kind of two things. I love the challenge of figuring out how to create something.
Yeah.
And this kind of goes hand in hand with the second one, is just impacting other people. So I love like seeing my investor fuel and investor machine members. Like I love seeing them win. Just a good friend of mine, actually, we were at family reunion a couple weeks ago, and he was there. He's an investor machine member as well, and he just did his most profitable deal ever, which is like a $250,000 wholesale deal. It's crazy. But just that stuff jazzes me up almost more than me making the money sometimes. So like I love to make money. I always say like I want pallets of like hundreds right here. I mean, I have to make money and I want that. And the truth is I don't really live a different lifestyle. It's just dry powder for building some of the things that I've done. I just reinvest it back into whatever it is that I'm doing. But I really love, for me, I'd say as an entrepreneur for a long time, it was a lonely space. And so I love to be able to kind of give back and impact people in a way to where they live a better life. And I want that for my family as well, right? Obviously. But anyway, I think kind of living a life with some sort of legacy that I've impacted people in a positive way, and just completing the puzzles. Sometimes making the puzzle and breaking the puzzle and having to recreate it.
Right.
I love the challenge of business, right?
You're playing at a bigger scale than I am, right? But I still got the question of like, why are you tapping into so many different things? And this is coming from a relative, somebody, who I love and whatnot. They know me, since I was in diapers and whatnot. Like, why are you doing all these things? And it kind of made me question, right? Like, why am I pursuing? Why am I, aiming for, this project, and doing this and then doing that? Like, why can't I just sit still? And I really thought there was something going on. I was like, I don't know. Am I trying to? I mean, I started asking myself. I did a auto, psychoanalysis, and like, am I compensating for something? Am I am I having issues of worth? Am I, what? So I went down the whole list, right? Boom, 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 boom. Finally, I got to the conclusion that, just because we can, it's a beautiful thing. We have the opportunity to do good stuff.
Yeah.
And if you really put your mind to it, you can make an impact. You can make a dent, right? Especially in the lives that
yeah, it's like, there's some people that are really, my dad's really into crossword puzzles. Like every day he's got to like do this thing. Like I have no interest in that, but it's similar in that I want to complete something. It's a puzzle in some ways. I mean, my mastermind, when I first started it, it was through a combination of I want to be around other people like me, like my peers, and that I really love being around entrepreneurs. I feel like entrepreneurs are, if anybody's going to kind of solve our nation's problems, it's entrepreneurs, is my belief for the most part, right? And so it's like I want to be around smart people that work hard and take risks, and because that's kind of who I am, and it kind of gives my life meaning if I can be around this island of other misfits, if you will, like me, right? And it makes us all feel like we're not alone, right? And then for Investor Machine, our data company and our lead gen agency, the biggest problem that people brought to me for years and years and years, especially in coaching, was, how to generate better leads, how to generate more leads, what list to mail to, and all of that. And I'm like, after being asked that like 15 billion times, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to create a done for you service, and nobody has to ask me this anymore. I'll tell you exactly what we do, or I'll do it for you.
Yeah.
And it's just like finding a void or a need in the market, and trying to, as long as I'm interested in that, trying to solve that problem.
Yeah, problem solution, right? Problem solution. It's really not that complicated in terms of the context of the thing, right?
Right.
But getting in gear, getting in action, I think is one of the most challenging things that people come across. How would you motivate, or how do you motivate your team, your people, to actually come in and then become responsible for their own actions, self-accountability, and more importantly, how do you start scaling from a single person who started doing flips to the operation that you have going on right now, which is massive?
Yeah, I think it's going to be different for every person because your skill set is different. And so for
Mhm.
folks that are listening to this saying, how do I, like, for example, I talked to a good friend yesterday, somebody that's in my mastermind, that these guys have, these guys are making a ton of money as real estate investors, but they're just kind of burned out. It gets transactional, and they want to
Yeah.
move into the coaching space. And I've seen people do this. I have a few friends that like crush it, and they have a team. They're not, they're not doing everything because they have a team, and then they start coaching and they're doing it by themselves. They're like, people, if you're interested, DM me on Facebook, and they're like doing everything. And the problem is like, you're back to square one. So,
Yeah.
if there's anything that I've done each time I've grown is, if I'm being honest, I don't really live a different life than I did 10 years ago. Like, we live in the same house. Like, I drive the same level of cars. I wear the same level of clothes for the most part. So, and I invest in multifamily, and I have a bunch of single family rentals and things like that. But sometimes I just take that money and say, well, I could buy a house with this, or I could invest in a syndication, or I could just make that seed capital for a new business that allows me to start with a little bit of dry powder, where I can hire a team or pay for resources to start that, just like a business. So I think some of it is kind of starting with scale in mind. If you've already started one business and you want to get into something else, think about, how to do it not the hard way that you probably started with the first time around. Like, how do you the second time around be smarter about whether it's partnering with somebody, or being able to afford to make an investment in people even before you have the revenue or the profit to cover that, instead of waiting till you get there, because your runway to get there, if you're doing it all yourself, is way longer than just plugging somebody in. So be
Oh
willing
yeah.
to invest in yourself, basically, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No,
And I'm not an expert, by the way. I make mistakes all the time. For our company now that we have like 80 employees, like you know, we're figuring out as we go along. We're dealing with all sorts of like personalities now, and things that
there's
have just like, I've always been built on, just work hard and get the job done and great things will come. And that doesn't work for other types of people. Sometimes like they're motivated by other things, and it's hard.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I'm actually going to teach a class to the family on that kind of stuff, behavioral strengths and so.
Yeah.
But no, it's, I think that there's always a drawing board, and in every entrepreneur desk. Like, we don't have it all figured out. We're trying to mostly, right, put the pieces together of the thing that we're working on. But for the most part, there's always like, we have attention here, and then we have that attention that's forward thinking, and then we need to figure that shit out too. So
Right.
it's always it's a dynamic space, is what I'm trying to say, right? When it
Yeah.
comes to the entrepreneur experience, or if you're running a business, if you're growing and you're really in it, when you're committed, though, I think the commitment really sets the tone and the difference. When you're committed, you're going to figure it out.
Yeah. And back to the failure thing, it's like
Yeah.
sometimes, and I struggle with this because you might be like this a little bit too. Like a lot of engineers or people that are analytical are like this, where you want to do something, but you're going to try to wait till you got it all figured out before you launch.
Yeah.
And then I've got a friend that is the type of guy, he's very different than me. I've always respected him. He like doesn't think about it much, and all of a sudden he's like launched, And I'm like, oh my God, like on one hand, I value that he stopped talking about it and just started to do it. On the other hand, I know the foundation is fragile for what he started because he didn't really think about it enough. So it's kind of this ready, aim, fire mentality, you know, and the truth is there's a balance somewhere in the middle there. Like get the foundation laid so that you're building your business from a solid foundation, like systems or whatever. But just move forward, and you're going to fail. You're going to get punched in the face. You're going to crash and burn, but use those as learning lessons, not stopping points.
Yeah. A good friend, like I think is one of the best lessons that I've ever learned. But it's he told me, just, you know, figure out what you want to do, what you're really good at, right? And then become an expert at that. Everything else, you just got to know enough that you're dangerous in it. That's it. So it's not, you know, like I want to know enough about something to know that I'm not being played, that actually my people are performing, doing the stuff they're supposed to be doing. So it's not about becoming, to me now, right? It's not about becoming an expert about every single area of the businesses, but it's about understanding how the thing works, how the machine works. Okay, cool. This happens to this, and then you can run it, you know, through scorecards, KPIs, and then metrics and accountability and all that stuff, plays into it. But it's to me, I was the guy that wanted to become an expert and then dial everything out, you know, by myself first before I could actually delegate it. And I mean, it works, but it's such a, you know, so much slower. It's incredible.
But you learned that over time, right? And then you might act differently in the future. Those are lessons that you learned. That the cool thing about that stuff is when you try new things, even if it doesn't work out, like nobody can ever take those lessons away from you.
Yeah.
Right? That's made you a stronger business owner, a stronger human, a stronger person.
Absolutely.
And those are the lessons that make us stronger as entrepreneurs. What you do with it is up to you, whether you quit or whether you pivot or whatever. But those lessons are so valuable, right?
You know, one thing that I got hooked on too, it's empowering the team, empowering my people. When I was doing everything myself, I mean, I was micromanaging. I was really on everything that needed to be done. The to-do lists were checked off and everything. Like I was the owner, right? And I had managers, but they weren't managing. I was managing the managers. Like that's not how to do it, right? Hire good people and then get the hell out of the way. But when I understood the concept of empowerment and really building up your team, your culture from within, and they started performing and doing way better than me on stuff, I got hooked on it. So now, like it's actually like, what's my one role? My one role is to empower my team, empower my people, whichever way I can. You know, be it through additional trainings, through conversations, through, you know, whatever it calls for, right? But I got hooked on that, and one thing that when I was doing everything myself is I was so far from that you know, the vision wasn't even clear. Like I didn't have a clear vision. I knew I was so it was so noisy with everything that I had to do in terms of tasky stuff. I couldn't move forward. I was just like stuck. So yeah, crazy. What would you tell somebody that you know, is barely getting started? They want to, you know, they're breaking into the whole space of entrepreneurship, and I mean, they just want to blow it out of the water. Like,
you got to get around people that are doing what you want to do. At the end of the day, whether it's if you're brand new and there's some level of coaching there, if it's kind of general entrepreneur, I mean, if you could learn from other people that are even in different businesses, just like an entrepreneur type mastermind or something like that. Obviously in real estate, there are very specific kind of masterminds for different techniques and even exit strategies sometimes, but you just got to get around people that are doing what it is that you want to do. Because, you know, there's no better way to learn than from somebody else's failures. Like us failing makes us stronger for sure. But if you can learn from somebody else's failures before you have that failure, like you'll climb the learning curve way faster.
Borrowed experience is also a thing, right?
That's right. And just the confidence level of getting around people, and not to take anything away from people that you would get around, but sometimes what you'll see, and I don't take anything away from anybody in my mastermind or anything. We have amazing people who have done amazing things, but they're not superhuman. So when you see a lot of these folks, you're like, and they'll say it, like, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Right. And they didn't have any special like superpower. They just, you know, made it happen over time and failed and kept moving forward and things like that. And that type of community, you know, can inspire the hell out of you and give you a ton of confidence that if that guy can do it, I can do this. If
Yeah.
that person can do it, I can do it too. By the way, if I have questions, most of these people will tell me exactly how they do it. Like most masterminds that I'm associated with, there's nobody that holds anything back. They'll tell you everything,
Yeah.
and that's just part of it. Is as entrepreneurs, I think we all want to give. We just don't necessarily, if your business isn't around giving, like running a mastermind or something, you just don't have the time to kind of share it all. So when you are around somebody, most entrepreneurs in my experience are super open about what it is they do.
Yeah, I agree with that. And to me, it was mind-boggling at first. Why would you tell somebody what's working for you? Why would you share like
Yeah.
your salt and pepper of success with somebody else? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I come from that cultural background, right? And it was just, the coveted secret. It's my precious, whatever your secret, potion was. But it's not like that, right? It's not like that, because when you start having conversations, you're gonna find out that you can help somebody else out. And then I love to pick the collective thought. When two people are getting together, it's not two different brains getting together, it's a third brain that, from the collective, right? Your ideas and my ideas are gonna, end up having little baby ideas over here, and that's the collective. Like, I
Yeah.
can't know what that's gonna look like if you're not in that conversation,
That's
right?
right.
You can't know what that's going to look like if I'm not in that conversation. When you have a group of 2, 3, 4 people or 100, man, the collective just gets so powerful, and it's way more than you can consume, right? But it's all good stuff,
Yep.
in my experience. So yeah.
Yeah, in our mastermind investor fuel for real estate investors, I tell everybody, like, our culture starts with giving. Like, we're give
Yeah.
first, like share your knowledge. And most people are kind of blown away. They hear that and they didn't really know what to expect. And they come in and they feel like they got so much value that you can't help but want reciprocity to work. Like you're like, I wasn't gonna share this, but man, I'm just opening it
Yeah.
up now because I got so much value. And it's just this circle of like, I give whenever people need help, and
Yeah.
I never want for anything because there's always people there to help me in any way I need it. And that's because I started with giving first.
Right. It's crazy, but you get a high from giving. It's like the giving
Yeah.
high. It's,
Yeah.
um,
And truthfully, for
everybody
us as
levels up.
entrepreneurs
Yeah.
too, I think there's a little bit of ego in play too. Like,
Yeah.
we have a lot to share. And if I can share it with somebody, and sometimes coaching isn't for everybody. So sometimes people share it with a new
Right.
student, a new, in real estate, let's say, and 9 out of 10 times that person isn't going to apply it anyway
Yeah.
because they're new and that's what newbies do. But
Yeah.
when somebody that is a proven entrepreneur, like,
Yeah.
they find out something that works and they're going to go apply it. And it gives us a lot of appreciation that I was able to share something with somebody and they actually did something with it. Right.
Yeah, you see that effect taking place, and then the ripple effect after that. It's crazy. When I started coaching, to me, a lot of it, like a lot of the apprehension or the holding back, um, was self validation. Like, I mean, is what I have good enough to be taught? Like, is
Right.
what I have to say good enough for people to listen? And yeah, so it took me a while to just to come to terms with that. And I'm normally a relatively confident person, but I like that was one area that I had to work on, to be completely honest with you, and just putting myself out there, and then really just come to terms with the fact that what I had to say was important, right? And then once that happens, you see the snowball effect, from that, and then changing lives. And even if I plant one seed in somebody's brain, and that grows to be something really cool, like, wow, that's an impact. But it gets bigger inevitably. So, man, thank you so much. The trajectory that you have, again, it's impressive, and I have the biggest respect for you, brother, since a long time ago.
The kind words, and I'm glad to be here for sure.
Yeah. Before we sign off, if somebody wants to find out more about you, maybe continue the conversation, find out more about Investor Machine or Investor Fuel, Mastermind, where's the best place to find you at?
Yeah, if you just want to connect, you could connect with me on Facebook. That's probably where I hang out the most in terms of social media. But if folks want to learn more about Investor Fuel, we actually set up a couple links to make sure that if you're Rafael's friend, you're our friend, we want to take good care of you. But if you go to investorfuel.com/pulse, that'll let us know that you came from Rafael, and we'd love to talk to you about Investor Fuel, which really is for professional. We actually have a couple groups for single family investors, people that are doing 10 to 50 deals a year, and then those that are doing 50 up to several hundred deals a year. for our single family side. And then we actually have multi-family groups now too, for those that are transitioning out of single family or other classes and want to move into multifamily, and you own or control less than 1,000 doors, or own and control more than 1,000 doors. We call that our cash flow group, but it's really for multifamily investors. So that's investorfuel.com/pulse. And if you want to learn about our data company and our lead gen agency, which is kind of a white glove done for you for professional single family investors, that is called The Investor Machine, and the website is The Investor Machine, theinvestormachine.com/pulse there as well. We created a little 15-minute video to kind of tell you our approach on data, which is pretty unique in the marketplace. And we work with hundreds of the top investors across the country. So if that's something that you're looking to, everybody wants more and higher quality leads, like we'd love to talk to you about it, tell you more.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. And last but not least, this is actually my favorite question of the whole show. So I usually close with it. If you were walking down the street and you ran into your 17-year-old self, what would you tell that kid?
Oh, you're catching me off guard on that one. I think, I have a 14-year-old son, so it's kind of, the timing is kind of right. I would say that, and part of it is my upbringing. Again, I came from a very blue collar family that I didn't have any entrepreneurs in the family, no business owners. And, I think it's just that there's a lot of ways to make money to build the life that you want. And it took me a long time to kind of learn that, like, you can do things that you enjoy doing, that you're good at, that are outside of the norm. And so I would just say, kind of do some research here. There's a lot of ways to make money that are not necessarily what you're being taught in school, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Thinking outside the box is huge, man. It's huge. Love it. Mike, thank you so much again for being on the show, bro. I appreciate you.
Absolutely, buddy. Thanks for your time.
Boom. It's a wrap, people. Stay focused. You got this.